to life and says that, he is using the power of his office to prosecute and persecute his political enemies. She also says a bunch of other mean things about J.D. Vance, the vice president, about Pam Bondi, the attorney general, et cetera, et cetera. Now, as the story is blowing up, Wiles took to X/Twitter. She says this: the article published earlier this morning is a disingenuously framed hit piece on me and the finest president, White House staff, and cabinet in history. Significant context was disregarded, and much of what I and others said about the team and the president was left out of the story. Now, again, she's not saying her quotes are wrong. To be clear, she's saying it was taken out of context. Now, what I think happened here is Wiles thought that she was either on background, meaning that her name wouldn't be attached to some of these quotes, or off the record, meaning that the reporter couldn't report on them. Or she forgot that she was on the record and she was talking to a reporter. Either way, she's not disputing the facts of what she said. She's just saying there wasn't enough context, which is what everybody always says when a bad story comes out about them. But I wanted to do a little bit more. I wanted to inform you guys, my audience, of Susie Wiles and who she is. Because even though she's in the news today, I think a lot of people, I see a lot of searches on Google, who is Susie Wiles? Who is Donald Trump's chief of staff? Which is remarkable because Donald Trump is probably the most famous/infamous president we've ever had. And yet his chief of staff is very, very little known and very, very behind the scenes, at least until today. So I want to go through sort of her soup to nuts background and then kind of land on where I think we're going with this story. Before I do that, quick pitch. Subscribe to my channel. I'm independent. I'm authentic. Independent and authentic. Those are the two things I will always be. I hope you subscribe. All right, so let's start. Wiles is 68 years old. She was born in 1957. She is the daughter of Pat Summerall. Her maiden name was Susie Summerall. Pat Summerall, if you don't know, famous New York Giants place kicker. He kicked field goals and stuff. And then went on, probably even more famously, to become John Madden's partner in the booth calling NFL games for decades. Pat Summerall, I will note, also was an alcoholic, although he was sober for the last 20 years of his life, but he was an alcoholic, which Wiles does cite as sort of, she's learned to deal with big personalities and people who have alcoholic personalities in dealing with her father, and that's why she thinks she deals well with Trump. That's what she said in the Vanity Fair. Anyway, she gets into politics in 1978. She went to the University of Maryland in College Park, Maryland, and then she gets into politics in 1978, working for Jack Kemp, who at that point is a member of Congress from New York. Kemp had been teammates with her father. Kemp was a quarterback, had been teammates with her father, so she works there. In 1980, she works for Ronald Reagan's campaign and then goes into the White House as a scheduler. Now, she then, after that, she goes back to Florida, where she's from, and she works for a bunch of different, she works for the mayor of Jacksonville. She works for a Republican congresswoman named Tilly Fowler. She does a bunch of other campaigny stuff, but she sort of comes into the quasi-national view in 2010. So in 2010, she manages Rick Scott's gubernatorial campaign. Now, Rick Scott, at that point, was a very wealthy health insurance executive running against the party establishment in Florida. Wiles runs that campaign. Scott wins. He's went on to win 2 terms as governor. He is now in the U.S. Senate. So that's her first big campaign. Now, in 2012, and this is fascinating, she signs on as the campaign manager for John Huntsman, who at that time is the governor of Utah. Huntsman was very much positioned as a kind of centrist within the Republican Party, not at all a fire breather. Tim Miller, who is now at the Bulwark, worked for John Huntsman's 2012 presidential campaign. So that campaign doesn't go anywhere, but Wiles is the campaign manager. She then ports over to sort of be involved in the Florida effort for Mitt Romney in 2012. She works for Ballard Partners, huge lobbying firm in Florida, Mercury Public Affairs, another big lobbying firm. In 2016, she latches on with Donald Trump, who is making his first run for office. She is the Florida chair and then eventually the campaign chair of Trump's effort in Florida. He wins Florida. In 2018, and this is where it gets really, really interesting. In 2018, Ron DeSantis is kind of a no-name backbench member of Congress. Donald Trump endorses DeSantis in a primary against the state agriculture agricultural commissioner named Adam Putnam, guy who had been in Congress, was moved back to the state to be ag commissioner so that he could run for governor. Widely seen as the favorite. Trump endorses DeSantis. DeSantis wins the primary. But then DeSantis gets off to a pretty rocky start in the general election. Susie Wiles comes in. Now remember, she's worked for Rick Scott and she's worked for Donald Trump already. She comes in and sort of rights the ship. In 2018, DeSantis gets elected governor. Come 2020, Wiles is sort of managing Florida for Trump. She gets fired or pushed out of that job by Ron DeSantis and his allies. Now, why did that happen? DeSantis didn't, a couple things. One, Casey DeSantis, the first lady, Ron DeSantis' wife, as well as another close DeSantis ally, did not get along with Susie Wiles. They thought she had too much power within the state party and was too loyal to people other than Ron DeSantis. DeSantis himself thought that Wiles was responsible for leaks about his governorship that painted him in an unfriendly light. So he pushes her out. That did not work out well for Ron DeSantis because Wiles signs on in 2024 to be Donald Trump's campaign manager. She and Chris LaCivita were the two people managing Donald Trump's campaign nationally. She wins, they win, he wins, and she becomes the chief of staff. Now, she is a very behind the scenes person. There are not a ton of pictures of her. There are not a ton of quotes about her. There's not a lot out there about Susie Wiles. I mean, what I just went through is about what you can find, which is what makes her decision to sit down for 11 separate interviews with somebody writing a giant profile of the Trump inner circle for Vanity Fair all the more odd. This is not really someone who seeks out the limelight in her career. She's never really been that person. She, in fact, makes a point of not being that person. I'll remind people, Donald Trump had 4 White House chiefs of staff in his first term. Wiles has made it through 1 year almost. So she's just not that person. I think that's what Trump likes about her. Trump is so in front of the camera. He doesn't want a chief of staff who's also looking to position themselves, which again makes what she told Vanity Fair all the more baffling. And to return to my earlier point, I have to believe she thought she wasn't being quoted some of these times, or she just got too comfortable with having the reporter around, classic mistake that politicians make, and just said things she shouldn't have said. Because remember, her denial is not these quotes are made up. Her denial is there's context here that wasn't reported. I mean, of course, journalism is about cutting down things, cutting down long interviews into things that you think are most newsworthy, right? You don't just run the full transcript of everything. You cut it down and write a story about it or talk about it. Anyway, it appears to me as though Trump World is lining up behind Susie Wiles. Donald Trump Jr. has already put out a long tweet defending her and saying how loyal she was and how great she is. Carolyn Leavitt, the White House press secretary, has put out a thing attacking Vanity Fair and this reporter and supporting Leavitt. That would not happen if Donald Trump didn't give it an okay. So she'll be fine, I think. But it is a fascinating thing. A person who has literally built her entire career and professional reputation on being discreet and behind the scenes is now way in front of the scenes talking bad about not just Donald Trump, but J.D. Vance and Pam Bondi and Russell Vought and Elon Musk and lots of other people. So if you missed what she said, go back and watch my previous video from today. I go through everything that she said. But I wanted just to go, this is who she is, right? And this is why it's so weird. She's almost unknown before today, which is probably why people want to know more, which is why I made this video. As I said before, I hope you subscribe to the channel. Independent and authentic. Those are my North Stars. I also hope you like and comment on this video in particular. That helps me grow my following among people who are not already subscribers. Last thing, be an evangelist for me. Tell a few people about what I'm building here and why you think it matters. Okay, everyone, take care.